Thank you so much for coming in and speaking today. Alorah Tout is a retired police canine officer. She's a veteran of the U.S. Navy. She served aboard the U.S.S. Hunley, and she was honorably discharged in 1992. She now is also a pranic healer. So, Laura, thank you so much. Really looking forward to hearing you talk about how military and pranic healing and holistic health kind of fit together.
I think the military and law enforcement are both militaristic. So it's just kind of how my whole life has been. I started in the military when I was 18. I was originally born and raised in Pennsylvania, and my plan was to go through the military, get the GI Bill, and go back to Pennsylvania, go to college, go through the police academy and work there. And I just never went back. So I was on board the ship, the U.S.S. Hunley, for 4 years. Can honestly say at 18 years old, it was the best and the worst years of my life. Those are critical years, those 4 years of becoming an adult, but still, you know, not having your feet under you. The military really helped a lot with that. And I met my husband on the ship, and I think I got out of the Navy in 1992 with an honorable discharge. And I still had the dream of being a police officer, but I was listening, excuse me, my dog is knocking my camera. I still wanted to be a police officer, but my husband didn't want me to. And of course, back then, girls don't do that. So I tried everything else and I wasn't happy. So I finally went through the police academy, and that was actually in Georgia. We had gotten stationed in Georgia, and I went through the federal police academy there and did federal law enforcement for probably about 4 years. And then I got the chance to go civilian, and I went with the civilian law enforcement in Florida. And within about 11 months, my dream of being a canine officer was recognized. And I worked with a Belgian Malinois, which most people aren't familiar with them. It's a type of shepherd, but stop, baby. But they're not German shepherds. They're more of the brown dogs with the black face. You see a lot with the military and with law enforcement now. That was probably the highlight of my law enforcement career, was being able to work with the dog and being in tune with the animal, and knowing that my life sometimes lay in his hands and his life was always in my hands. But it was just a powerful time for me. And then I would have to say about a year after I got rock, I was at a gallery in the town that I lived in an art gallery, and I had put some of my art in the gallery, and the woman that owned the gallery and I had become friends, and she was a pranic healer. So I didn't really ask too much about it back then, because having the military and law enforcement background, there wasn't, even though I was curious about stuff like that, there wasn't any room for the woo-woo, the energy work, the, you know, the hand waving and stuff like that. And then probably maybe about a year after I met her, I had a traumatic incident happen in law enforcement. And so one of my colleagues was killed. And so that was a traumatic time for me. And that's where pranic healing really stepped into my life. The lady that I was talking about with the gallery, she was a pranic healer, and she offered to do a healing on me. And at that point, I was still kind of in shock. So I was like, if you can do anything, go ahead. And I honestly did feel a difference immediately. A lot of the grief started to go away. And of course, that's just layers that'll come off over the years. But it got me a little more interested. And so at that point, I had an 8-year-old son and my husband. And I had, after the incident with my colleague, I actually moved out of the house to kind of get my head together. And that's when I stepped into pranic healing. I took my first class in 2005, and I took it with the lady in Panama City. And then it was probably about 4 years before I ever really moved forward with it. And so I went through the law enforcement. I used a lot of the pranic healing tools in my law enforcement before I actually stepped forward past the first class. And it had a powerful effect. And then in 2007, I was run over by a drunk driver. So I was physically run over. I had 8 broken bones from the knees down. I've been rebuilt up to my neck. And I can tell you for a fact that if it wasn't for the pranic healing and having had that in my life back then, I probably wouldn't be here. She started healings on me immediately. Other pranic healers stepped in and were helping me. And I still hadn't really, I don't think I really realized the importance of pranic healing in my life until a few years after that. And so I started going to Gulf Breeze for classes with Ken and Connie Williams. And I moved forward with the advanced pranic healing. And it was just amazing to me each time I went to a class or anything like that. I felt different. I felt lighter. And I could, instead of being stuck in a lot of the stuff with law enforcement, with military, though those were very important in my life, they're also very heavy to carry sometimes. So you just keep putting them aside and putting them aside and putting the feelings and emotions aside. Everything that you see, everything that you do, you just kind of put it in a little category, put it in a box, and put it somewhere in your brain where you don't have to think about it again. So it was through working with Ken and Connie, and that's where I met Master Marilag with pranic healing and everything, that it really, really changed my life, especially with all of the rebuilds that I've had, having pranic healers work with me, and just a lot of the trauma and things like that that you deal with on a daily basis. The meditations and things really worked. But if you told me that I was going to be talking like this even 10 years ago, I would have probably, asked you for your driver's license, ran you, and maybe put you in that little fun farm that they have. Now it's amazing to me because pranic healing opened me up to such a whole new world. Master Nona does an archangel meditation, and through that meditation, Ken Williams had sent me the CD to listen to. And at that time I was a crime scene investigator, so I went from K9. When they retired my dog, I moved to another agency, and I worked patrol again, and I did that. I did law enforcement for approximately 17 years. And then the last rebuild from the accident in 2007 was, in 2014, where they fused 3 levels of my neck. So through pranic healing, it was supposed to take up to, I think they said 10 weeks to a year for it to start fusion and really start working. And it was supposed to take up to a year to 2 years for it to solidly fuse. Through pranic healing and just keeping it clean and doing the protocol for the regrowth and everything, I was solidly fused all 3 levels in 7 weeks. And it amazed the doctors and everything. So there's not much about my life that I don't, my life would be a lot different had I not stepped onto this path. And then through Master Nona's Archangel meditation, when Ken sent it to me the first time I listened to that meditation, it was after a weekend where I worked 39 hours. It was from Friday night to Sunday morning. I was in crime scene, so we had multiple calls, robberies, and some other not so fun ones to deal with. And I was exhausted. So I just put my headphones on and I started listening to the meditation, and I literally heard the voices in my head say, "Welcome home." So I knew somewhere along the line that the angels were going to be even more powerful in my life than what they were at the time. So through that time, it was a lot of growth for me. So when I first got into it, I was still kind of iffy about it. And then over the years of just taking the classes and stuff, I would get excited about it, and then it would kind of go away and life would take over. Um, a few years ago, I ended up getting divorced, and I moved to back to Pennsylvania for a couple of years, and then went back to Florida again. Um, but honestly, the one stable in my life has been Pranic Healing, Master Choa, and the Pranic Healing family that we have has been amazing. Um, so with the military, uh, it was, again, that was back when I was 18. I'm 52 years old now. And it was kind of, there were some traumatic things that happened back then that I didn't even think about. I just kind of put those away and moved forward. And over the years, the trauma has come back up, but I've always been able to, get a healing or do healings on myself or just do the meditations. And it's kind of helped me get through a lot of the hard spots. So I know it's supposed to be more about my life. I really, it's, it's, um, I love life itself, but I do sometimes forget my tools. And when I forget my tools, things get a little heavier and a little harder. And then I remember the tools and I'm like, oh, okay, let's do the meditation. Let's do the self-healing, or let's call and get myself into a healing group and move forward from there. Um, it's right now I am living in a hotel room. The house that I was living in had a hot water heater burst, and mold and mildew got all over everything. So I think there was a time when I would just give up. I would just be sitting in a ball, like I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do at this point. And I've just taken this time. It's so quiet here. I've taken the time to really connect back in and really do the meditations again, and just look at the positive side of things. So I really, honestly, I can say if it weren't for Pranic Healing and the tools that we've learned there, I was a very angry person for a very long time. And just having these tools to work with has really changed my life. It saved my life on multiple occasions. And it saved my dad's life. He had a massive heart attack. He had come out of it was just a day surgery. We were supposed to pick him up, and he had a heart attack in the post-op. And I texted Master Glenn, and I, told him what was going on. And I said, please heal him. I can't right now. And he pulled through it. He was 76 years old, and he pulled through it. The doctors were amazed. They went in and did a heart cath, and they cleared out, I guess he would have had the widowmaker. So if we had taken him out of the hospital that day, he wouldn't have made it. And I know for a fact that me doing healings on him, and of course, Master Glenn and the others that volunteered, my friend Karen volunteered to do healings on him. If it were not for Pranic Healing, I wouldn't have my dad. He just turned 80 years old in May. So I'm excited that I still have him and can get to talk to him and things like that. But Pranic Healing has become a very important part of my life. Sometimes I don't pay as much attention to it as I want to, where I get sidetracked. But honestly, it gives so much balance, and you have so many tools to work with. Anything from healing just a simple cut, healing your pets, healing your children. My son was in a motorcycle accident. I think it was 2018. I had just lived through Hurricane Michael that destroyed the whole city around us. And about a week after that, my son was in a motorcycle accident that literally, I have worked many, many, many vehicle accidents and motorcycle accidents. And I look at the damage to the truck that pulled out in front of him. And I look at the damage to his motorcycle. And I know that just through being more spiritual and learning what I have through Pranic Healing and praying every day for him and his safety, calling in the angels to protect him, which I would have never thought about before this. I know that's why he's still here. He walked away with a sprained ankle and a concussion, a mild concussion. So there's just so many things that I'm grateful for the teachers that I've had, and for the teachings themselves and the friends that I've made through Pranic Healing. It's an amazing journey. I can honestly say that my life before Pranic Healing, I made it pretty tough. Sometimes even after I started Pranic Healing, I allowed myself to let life be a lot rougher than I had to. I'm one that when something goes wrong, I'm hard on myself. I don't look for outside sources. I beat myself up. And I have learned just over the years that there's no sense in that. There's no sense in blaming anybody. The bright spot of being moved out of my house and in a hotel room, instead of thinking, oh, what am I going to do next? I can look at it and say, wow, it's a peaceful place. I can meditate. I can just spend time paying attention to me instead of everybody else. And my clothes and stuff that were destroyed by the mold, insurance came through this quick. It's only been 2 days. They came through this quick, and I just went shopping and bought myself a whole new wardrobe. So it's it just helps you balance. It helps you balance your emotions more. It helps you think through situations more. So you don't shut down the traumas. You sit and you look at them and say, okay, this happened. This is the consequence. And these are the tools that I have to help myself get through whatever this is. And my friend Karen, she's amazing. She reminds me quite often, just through conversations and stuff, all of the tools that we have. Just like I said, just through Pranic Healing and learning different things like that. So again, if you would have told me 10 years ago that I'd be sitting here talking about energy healing and things like that, I would have told you, no, that's not going to happen. But as you get lighter, as your energy opens more and your mind opens more, I now do artwork. I channel angel art, so I can connect in with your higher self and ask the angels to just basically create the artwork for you. And sometimes the channeled message comes with it. These are things that I've never, in the old mindset, I never would have thought about or even dreamed about being able to do. It's been an amazing journey. Through life itself has been an amazing journey. And because of Pranic Healing, I can look back and see the lessons even in the worst parts of it. So it's amazing. It's amazing to be able to help people. I think I've always wanted to be in service to people. And through law enforcement and the 911, answering 911 calls and things like that, the tools have come in very handy, not only for myself, but for others. So it's been a great journey through everything, through the good, through the bad. Everything has just been part of the journey and part of the pieces of the puzzle.